Hello and welcome back to my channel if you're a returning person, and if you're just stopping by, welcome. If anything that I talk about on this channel is something that you can relate to, please by all means subscribe and become part of the family. My name is Maud Chifamba, as you can tell from the title of the channel, and in this video I'll be talking about APC APT because it's almost the same thing. The background of why I'm talking about this is because I wrote my APC last year and I passed. Its results came in February, thank God. And then I've been receiving a lot of questions regarding APT, APC, because I understand exams have been going on even when we were on lockdown. I just thought I should just do a video and just address everyone with my experience. So let's get right into it. So to start with, I'm just going to give you a brief story of my APC journey. Well, everything is a journey in my life. So I passed my APC the first time, thank God as well. But my APT, I wrote test 1 and I passed. Test 2, I did not pass test 2 and I had to write SAP. Thankfully for me, I actually see it as a blessing that I actually did not make it in that test 2 because I think I was looking down on APC. I was sort of underestimating it because I just written test 1 without doing much of anything and then passed. So I think if I hadn't failed test 2, I could probably have failed the final exam. And the reason why I failed test 2, which is also very fortunate on my part because I could easily identify why I failed, is because we got the case study I think on a Friday. Yes, it was on a Friday because we were supposed to write on a Wednesday or Tuesday, I don't remember. But that was my brother's graduation day and then graduation weekend, so we just went out and we did the most. We were just all over the place and I could not focus on my APC, whatever that I had going on, APT, sorry, that was going on. So I just went into the exam. We call it year case at UZ, we used to call it year case, but I just went into the exam just as I was and I was like, I'll figure it out. And then I couldn't figure it out. So from there I could figure out my pitfalls of what I couldn't figure out in the exam, and those are just a few tips that I'm just going to give you guys on how to survive APT APC. Alright, so the first thing that I would encourage you to do is for you to see the case study as a live business case. Look at it as this is actually a real business that is going on, and this is a real client that you're going to need to either speak to the FD, to the FM, to the board, to the CEO, to whoever, because as people who are writing APC, competent in terms of competence, I do believe you are good, and because of the fact that ICAS now requires a certain amount of experience before you can write APC, that means some of the things that you will be asked are things that you're actually doing in your day-to-day life, so they are not as hard. But the thing is, most of the times for me, the reason why I couldn't make the second test was because I went into the exam and I did not even know what that case study was really about. I knew the name of the company, but of course I hadn't treated it as this is a live business that I need to know about. I hadn't treated it like that. So the first thing is treat your case studies as real live businesses, and so that it becomes real to you, and also it becomes something that you can relate to. That's number 1. Then number 2 is during the time, the pre-release time, try to identify every trigger. If you see anything in that case study that you do not know, do not go to the exam without finding out what that is. I remember our case study had roll rate, which was like IFRS 9. I saw it, I did not bother to read about it because I was like, who asked about roll rate? We're not being asked about competence. This is not ATC, this is APC. And then it came that the question, the exam required me to actually know about roll rate to be able to answer some questions. So yes, that's the other thing. Identify all your triggers. Everything that you don't understand in that case study, follow up on it. Make sure you can define it, you understand what it is, you have a basic understanding of what that is. That's 1. 2, research on the standard that the case study is actually referring you to, so that you don't have to go back to your standards on the actual day of the exam, because 8 hours look like it's a it's a long time, it's a lot of time, but it's not. So you don't want to be in that exam room and be going back to say, okay, where do I find IS 41, where do I find IS 47, if there is a specific, because usually these case studies, you have specific standards that they need you to know. So go and read on those standards before you go into the exam. Then the third thing is, for the case study, just have a group. A group is not everything. Have never been a groups person. It's not everything. But what I figured out is, when I go through and I identify some things and then I go to the group, you get to hear a lot of different perspectives, and some people you might have identified the same trigger, but you might be looking at it from a different way than what somebody else is looking at it from, and you get to glean from each other's perspectives, because I'm in audit, someone is in academics, someone is in the industry. So those different perspectives, they build up to something beautiful. So invest in a group. Then the fourth thing about a case study is, I know there are packs that are coming out of universities in South Africa, packs that are coming from firms, like the KPMG pack, South Africa pack, what pack. Do not depend on those packs, because those are based on those people's understandings. So the moment you take that and you're writing on it into the exam, it's good to look at it, because some people already have researched so much. It's good, but I'm just saying, have your own pack. Aside from somebody else's pack, have your own pack, so that you get to see for yourself before you even go into the exam, if you are understanding corporate governance, if you're understanding value in your business, if you're understanding auditing estimates, if you're understanding the ABCD, not just to depend on a pack. Because even if you go into the exam with that pack, a time will come when you don't even understand what that person on that was writing on that pack, what their thought process was. All right, that's fine. And then now we go on the day of the exam. The first tip is calm down. You have been doing this for the last 18 months. You know what you're doing. Have confidence in yourself. That's one. Because who likes an FM that is not even confident of their work? That's one. Two, answer everything, even if it's just addressing the email to someone, writing the subject, and then saying, I've done this and blah 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 blah. Answer every required. Answer it. I'm not saying be the best in every required, but I'm saying every required should be answered before you submit that paper. All right, that's number 2. Number 3, context. Right. So I'll just give like a general example that I gave my friend in the morning. So I have somebody who's my friend who's a smart tech. All right. So if I'm just writing in general, I'm just gonna say COVID is very dangerous, because people with comorbidities can die from it. So you don't need to get COVID, because if you have a comorbidity, then it will be a bit complicated for you. But if the case study is somebody who has asthma, I'm not going to then go and say general things like COVID and comorbidities don't coexist. No, I'm just going to go and say this person has asthma and they're at a greater risk of dying if they get COVID, because they already have breathed a condition with their breathing, their respiratory system. Okay, so that's context. You are not answering the question in a general way. It's not a question about a general business. It's a question about a specific case study. All right, so have your answer speak to the case study. Have your answer speak to the industry of the business. Have the answer speak to the situation that is going on in the case study, not just a general answer. That is context. Then the other thing is audience. Be very careful of who you are addressing. Let's say you are an auditor. The way I'm going to address the FM, who I'm dealing with also on a day-to-day basis, is going to be very different from the way that I'm going to write an email, let's say to the MD with my findings, or the way that I'm going to write to my manager is different from the way that I will write to my partner. It's different from the way that I would write to a board about corporate governance. So when you're answering, make sure that your answer is addressing who you are writing that email or that report or whatever it is that you've been asked to write to. Make sure that that answer considers who you are writing to. I don't know if that makes sense at all. Right, that's the other thing. And then the last thing, try to open up your mind. You always find ways to go around to answer these questions, because most of them, they're not too deep in terms of being technical. They're not too deep, but they want to test, I mean, it's assessment of professional competence as well. After all, so they're looking at, do you know how to address people? Do you know how to address your juniors? Do you know what you're doing? You know, that sort of thing. Make that reflect in your answer. I wasn't part of the burst APC students, but I passed, and what you also need is a pass. But other than that, all the best in your upcoming APT and APC exams, and I hope to see you on the other side.